Was his testing full of So, did you see the video that was made that was a couple of months back where BassHQ went through and he took all the top fluorocarbon lines and he went through and he tested them using abrasion, stretch, memory, breaking strength, and line diameter. And he also did a price comparison. And I've seen that, and I was like, man, that's some really good testing, because he went through, you know, being an engineer, you're going to do a series of tests, multiple different tests, you know, throw out outliers, and so you come up, you know, with, you know, a series of data that you can go through and do a comparison between the two. And he did a pretty good job. So seeing that, I was like, man, I think he's onto something. And he ranked his #1 line, the Spro Gouken Essential series line, and which was surprising because I had never heard of it to that point. So if you haven't seen the test, here's a list of the charts that shows the rankings of the Spro in there, and then come on back. So there you go. As you can see, the one I left out was a price comparison. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But he did a pretty good job. And looking at that, I use, just like a lot of other people, a real popular line is the Seagur Invisx. And I usually use this on everything when it comes to my bait casters, my finesse spinning rods, everything. I've been using this for years. And then I seen that and I was like, oh man, if that's the case, I got to get on top of that. And just like everybody else, I went out there and bought it, and it's sold out everywhere. And so I went through and I got 10 pound for my spinning, just like I usually do with the Invisx, and I got 12 pound for my bait casters, just like I do with my Invisx. So I had a direct comparison, like, is this stuff really worth it? The only part that sucks, that's why I left out the price comparison, because when that was, before it sold out, it was going for like $16.99 to $19.99 a spool, and then they went off, you couldn't find them anywhere, and then when it came back on, they were like $24 to like almost $30 a spool. So, you know, his comparison doing it for, you know, as far as price value, I think kind of went in the tubes there, because the price of the Gouken stuff just went through the roof. So, that being said, I went through and I put it on everything, and if you've seen my last couple of videos that I've had, that's what has been on there, is this Gouken Essential Fluorocarbon line. And I've been using it. I've taken it to a lot of places. You know, it's been kind of tough fishing, so I didn't really get some videos on it. Like I took it back out to Wilson, which is a lot of rocks and just getting snagged up on big rocks and boulders. And, you know, you've seen the video where I was trying to pull it through the line, or pull it through the tall grass. I've went through some local, you know, city ponds, you know, where you're trying to pull through shrubs and everything. You know, I took it out to a big lake where it had a lot of rebar. You know, they've broken up sidewalks and stuff that they kind of scatter along the edge of docks and everything. You know, pulling it through there. So, you know, I really wanted to put it through the same type of test that I did with, that I've been using for years with my, the Seagur stuff, because the Seagur stuff has been great. But, you know, there's other things with the Seagur that I really didn't like, which was like the memory. Sometimes I felt like the castability wasn't really there. It wasn't bad by any means, but it was just like, it seems like it could be a little bit better. So I threw it on. So, just like I said in the little opening there, was this testing full of crap? I don't want to say it's full of crap, but was it off? I'd say when in a hands-on, you know, real-life application, yes and no. This is where it is. So where I think, so the things that really don't matter, the line diameter, I think that's probably going to help, because that's going to help you, you know, you're going to get more line on spool, but it's also going to help with castability. I will say that compared to these two, between the Spro and the Seagur, the Spro definitely did get better casting distances. You know, I tried it with each line, and I thought it did really, really well as far as the casting distances. And I think maybe the memory has a little bit to do with that. If it does, if it doesn't, you know, you can, you know, you comment down there. I think, but, you know, I think it really did. Now, the memory side of it was another thing I was concerned about, because, you know, the Seagur, sometimes you leave it on there for a while, you get through, and you'll get, you know, it seems like once you backlash with it, and my opinion, once you backlash with it, it seems like it kind of keeps wanting to backlash, like it gets that memory in there and it's knots, and, you know, but the memory on the Gouken was pretty good. Like I said, I did see after I left it sitting for like a week or two and then went back to it, I did see some memory in there, but it seemed like it kind of worked itself out. Now, my spinning rod, you know, not a lot of people use, you know, I'm kind of an outlier there. A lot of people use like full fluoro on their spinnings. I do. I got so tired of tying leaders and breaking leaders and then trying to retie in leaders and then getting, you know, when you get a wind knot with braid, that stuff, you might as well just cut it up out of there. The fluoro, I felt like I got a little bit more wind knots with this than I did. Maybe it was kind of a, you know, 1-to-1, maybe it's about the same, but it seems like I did get wind knots, but they weren't as hard to get out. So I will say the memory on that too. So the line diameter as far as castability, I got to give it to the Spro. The memory, I got to give it to the Spro. I would give it that. That was pretty good. The abrasion side of it, that's the part, that and the sensitivity, the line stretch. So you got line stretch, and in my case, people can do it if you're something when it comes to materials. If you got less stretch, less ductility, that means it's going to be stronger, which is also means it's going to be more brittle. And a lot of people stay away from fluorocarbon because you have that instantaneous explosion, as you know, I've heard some of my friends say, or as you know, that just, you know, just pop, like just, you know, constant pop. It just kind of breaks on you, and then it's like, oh man, now you're just kind of, you know, losing lures or losing fish. So a lot of guys are kind of, you know, kind of hesitant. Like I got a friend, he's pretty hesitant when it comes to using fluorocarbon, just because he's like, man, this stuff will just, boom, just pop on you. And it does if you get frays and different things in there, you know, it will pop on you. Or again, if it's too brittle. Like when I used the spider wire line, that stuff was so brittle, and plus going through the guides, it sounded like piano wire. It was just like you could hear it almost like it was made of tin, just tinging through the guides, and the stuff was so brittle, like you give a little bit of a, you know, tug or rub on something, it just popped. And so I got away from there. And just in comparison, I have used a lot of lines before I got to Seagur. I used like P-line, I used the Sniper, I used the a lot of the different FC lines. You know, I used the you know, the combination copolymer stuff. I used a bunch of different things. And I just found that, you know, when I came down to it, all around best for me was, you know, the Seagur Invisx. I've even used the higher end, which that stuff is nice. It's like Tinsu or Tisu or whatever. That's some good stuff, but that stuff is expensive. But the problem I had, where I thought his testing was off, is when it came to, and I was throwing in stuff that had a lot of structure, like rocks and different things like abrasion where it was rubbing up against things, and even like pulling through grass. It just didn't seem, it seemed like it was too brittle. And I think that maybe comes with having the less stretch, less give, is just going to make it more just kind of, it'll be strong, but it's going to be more tendency to want to break, especially if you got any kind of nicks in there. Because especially when I went out on, let's say, Wilson with all the rocks and all the boulders underneath, and you're constantly getting snagged on rocks, I lost probably like 6 lures the first day. Some of them I was able to get in that kind of tug, and then some of them, man, it was just like, pop. And I'm like, holy crap, man, that didn't take much. And even here at a local lake, it was just like going through there. I don't know if I got that in the video. I think I got a partial of it. Yeah, it was just like I kept breaking off. And I've had with the Invisx, it does have a little bit more stretch. And I've had this where I've actually pulled this stuff loose and actually broke a hook, like on my, the Saki or whatever it is, the Mickey rig, blade baits. I've actually got that snagged and actually pulled and actually broke the hook off. And so I've been really impressed with the strength on this. I've actually had 12-pound line on this on one of my when I've said that before, on my spinning rods, my little heavier spinning rods, and actually pulled in like a 33, 34-pound flathead on the 12-pound Seagur with no issue. But then it said this stuff, it just kept breaking. So when it comes to abrasion and the breaking strength, I think maybe he was flawed. I mean, I think it got actually #1 in breaking strength, but when, you know, my real world application with pulling things through and trying to pull snags out, seemed like the Seagur did a lot better. And that was another thing that I had when you're thinking about it having less stretch. That's more about, and I think he actually brought it up in his video, was sensitivity. And I did notice, and this is my case, and I tried it out with different lures, like Ned rigging. I went out to like a Murray Lake out there where, again, it's a lot of rocks, a lot of underwater structure, and I'm just throwing Ned rigs, just throwing it down there, and I felt like I was missing bites. There's a lot of times I'd have a fish on and didn't even know it, where I've taken this out, the Seagur in through there and just throwing it even in current, and just tat, 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 and boom. I'm feeling every reaction. Where this one, for some reason, I didn't feel like even though it's supposed to be a more dense, less stretch, you're supposed to have more sensitivity. I actually felt like I had less sensitivity. Even when it went to the point where I'm throwing blade baits and things that had a little bit of vibration, or bladed jigs like jackhammers and things, it was hard for me to feel like when I'm throwing the Mega Bass blade bait, it's got a little bit of a damper on the back, I couldn't even tell if it was vibrating or not. But in here, I could actually like feel it through the entire rod. So, and I'm all about sensitivity because, I'm pulling through there. I want to feel everything. That's why I put fluorocarbon on everything. I want to be able to feel everything when I'm coming through there, so I can get that little subtle bite, especially when the areas that I'm at where they have a lot of high pressure. I want to feel that little subtle bite so I can, boom, I can pop it, and I can get that bite that a lot of people might miss. So that was the two things was the braking and the sensitivity was like really off for me. Then again, like I said, the price, when you went through now, you can get this for about $24 a spool, 20, depending where you go, you can get about 20 to 24, I think. I think this is even higher now. I think this is probably 24 to 30. I think when I got it, I had to get it from Spro. I think by the time you get everything, it was like $30-something. And I'm like, oh man. So yeah, it's a good line. I will get it. Am I going to keep it on all of my stuff? It's a hard, because like I said, I will give it to them. You get the castability and you get the memory. So it's going to help, with the casting. The casting was great. The strength wasn't bad, but it just seemed like it did fail a lot more, especially when I'm in snags and structure, than what I've experienced in the last couple of years using Seagur. So I don't really know, man, if it's really going to be worth that upgrade. Like I said, like I said, this stuff, I've got 5-6 in different combos, so I dropped quite a bit of money, switching these out. And I'll be honest with you, I'm probably going to go back. I'm going to go back here, because like I said, even though the castability is going to be there for me, which everybody loves, especially if you do a lot of shore fishing. If you're in a kayak and a boat, it doesn't really make that big of a difference. But, a lot of guys like me, most of my time I'm spent on the shores, that castability does help. But then if you lose that strength, because you're going to get snagged, on a boat, you can go get that snag out most of the time. On the shore, you can't. Most of the time you got to try to walk around, and you got to try to hope you can pull it free. It seemed like I had a lot more ability to pull things free with the Seagur. And again, the sensitivity. I don't know what it was. Like sometimes I thought it was maybe it's in my head, but then I tested them. I even had one of my sun's rods that still had the Seagur on it, and I'm using it back and forth, and the Seagur just seems like, even though it has more stretch, according to his test, it was more sensitive. And the abrasion. It seemed like when it came through with the rocks, I pulled this through. I've used this all day for like a whole weekend, pulling this down rivers, through rocks, rivers, pulling it through things, and never had it snap off. And this was like pulling through rivers. I broke off quite a few times. So that kind of means a lot to me. So again, I know I just said it, but am I going to stay with the Spro? Probably not. Once these get replaced, I'm probably going to go back and throw this back on. I did see some of the ones he had also that was like the gold label, which I wasn't familiar with that. And that actually did, I think, test, the majority of them did test higher. And it was cheaper. I think it was like $10 or, somewhere around that, cheaper than the Invisx. I will say I did use the tin Tatsu, I think it is, but that stuff is like $40, $50 a spool, depending where you get it. That stuff was really good as far as castability. My father-in-law uses it full time on his Shimano Vanford, and man, it gets really good castability. And I think it has, because they had pretty good strength. That he's running like 8-pound line, and he was pulling that stuff out of structure. And so I may end up going that route eventually, but right now, that's going to be my go-to. No knock to BassHQ. I give him mad respect. That was a really good test. If I didn't respect his test, I never would have went through and tried to put this to a real world application. But being an engineer myself, that's the reason why I'm like, oh man, okay, let's put that to the test. You can do a lot of things in labs, but when you get out there in real world, different environmental aspects of things really can, really take its toll and really give you the true effects of what things can do that you won't experience in a lab. But mad props to him. If you haven't seen his video out there, again, it's BassHQ. He has out there. He tests probably one of the lines you use on an everyday basis. He went through a large number of lines. So yeah, if you haven't seen that, go check that out. Again, thanks for watching, man. I hope that helps you. If a lot of y'all guys are like me, because stuff's hard to find, and you're like, should I go drop a couple, $100 or more to go through to replace everything with this, or should I stay with, my Invisx or something? I hope that kind of gives you an aspect of me, going out there and me putting into a test. Till next time, man, thanks for watching. You got any comments, feel free. I'll try to answer your comments. All right, next time.